Hello, Divine Ones, and welcome to another Wellbeing Wednesday. Today is a very special episode. I have with me one of my dear friends. And when I began to think about interviewing people around the conversation of what it takes to be well and live well as a soul having a human experience, there was nobody that came to mind faster than this person. When I first met her actually through her husband, which is Robert Holden. But when I began to research her, I came across her work on social media. And I honestly don't believe there is anybody in the world that teaches and embodies presence, and particularly leaning into what love is presenting you in the moment and finding the love that's in the moment better than this woman. I am just really excited to have this conversation with her. I've learned so much from her, and I love her. So I'm excited to introduce you all to Hollie Holden. Welcome, Hollie.
Oh my goodness, thank you, Jerome. I think I need you to introduce everything I ever do ever. Because I feel so seen and loved, and and it's just what I also love is, we've had a conversation before, and I love your invitation, which is that this is just a genuine recorded conversation, between two human beings trying to live from love to the best of our ability. And that's such a precious invitation. So thank you for having me on your Wednesday. What is it called? Wellness Wednesdays?
Wellbeing Wednesday.
Wellbeing Wednesdays. Okay, so here we are.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I really wanted to just come and share space with you and have a conversation with you because the way you are in the world and through your writings and your teachings around really finding the love that exists in the moment and just surrendering yourself to it and surrendering yourself to what it's teaching you, what it's offering you, what it's asking of you, is beautiful. I know in my own journey, that has been the thing that has really centered me in my well-being more than anything else. Knowing that love is here right now and that whatever is here is love and it's enough. And I really wanted to just kind of talk to you about that because I know your journey is a unique one, as all of our journeys are, but you are just sharing jewels of wisdom around that the depth of that is worth its weight in gold. So I wanted to just kind of talk to you about your journey with leaning into love as it is, like this moment right here matters. So my first question for you is, why is that important for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. One answer to that is I don't really know any other way. Like, I don't think I wasn't ever a child who just kind of, even when I was little, I remember looking around going, who's talking about the thing? Where's the thing? Like, where's this thing that I know? And I can't remember not having that feeling of of wanting to be in the presence of people who really could be here, could be present, could be living from this love. I guess it's always just been a necessity for me to seek out those people, learn from those people, because it's what I know deep inside. And then I think as I've grown up, into an adult, I know that I've cultivated and I continue to cultivate a life where that is at the center, like truly at the center. Because I genuinely don't know how else to be in this world. If we're not doing that, it's like, what is it? And it doesn't mean that it makes it easier by any means to be here, but it certainly makes it meaningful, and real and authentic. And, I don't know what a better use of my time is than to be bringing love and standing for love in any moment. I just don't know what that is. I don't know what else it is. And it really doesn't mean that I do that every moment of the day, of course. You know, we know that it's not possible. But I think as I've deepened into my spiritual path, what I realize is that it's about, what am I returning to? What am I returning to? That's always my question. Where am I? And what am I returning to? And one of my first ever kind of big moments with one of my spiritual mentors was he asked me, he said, we were all kind of sitting with our copies of A Course in Miracles. We were doing like a little gathering, and I was just sort of thinking, oh, I hope he doesn't ask me any questions, because I was really intimidated. And he said to me, he looked straight at me and he said, honey, where are you? And Jerome, it's so embarrassing because I completely panicked, and I looked down and I said, oh, I'm on page 387. And he's like, no, honey, where are you? And I was like, no, really, I'm on page 387. And I just didn't get it. Like, I didn't get what the question meant. And he asked me a third time, honey, where are you? And it's like something in me, this question kind of like landed in me. And I was like, oh, yeah, where am I? Like, where am I? And I feel like that question has stayed so alive in me as a practice, you know, as a genuine practice. Like, where am I? It's a constant check-in, because wherever I am, it's like, I know that my aim is to come back to the love, the deepest, widest love that is love, that is love, that I know. And that is like, that's my aim. That's my goal. And I have no idea if I've answered your question. Because I'm kind of just rolling with what's coming. But yeah, that's what comes to me in this moment to say.
Yeah, when I, being diagnosed with 2 terminal illnesses, made me, one of the biggest things that I tell people about it is it wasn't that it made me just wake up, but it made me I could not go to sleep anymore to what was being offered to me in the moment. Right. And that, to understand, just going off of what you said here, was that this moment right now is offering me everything that I need. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine last night, as I was telling him about, I was getting ready to have this conversation with you. And we were talking about how, and you write about this so well, about how we always think sometimes that our solution or our answer or the big joy or whatever is in this next thing. And then when you get to that next thing, what you realize is that it was being offered in the last thing. Like that the answer was actually being offered in the last thing. The love and the enjoyment was being offered in the last thing. But sometimes our mindset that this moment isn't enough disallows us to see it. And that was what I think for me, a big part of my healing journey was like, this moment, my journey was a lot about I am enough, but in understanding that I am enough, this moment is enough. And I don't have to escape this moment anymore. And I know as I've watched and read and talked with you over these last few years, being a mother and being in a relationship with someone who is a best-selling author and, in his own rights, a celebrity, and also doing your own, like stepping into your own message. How do you find, because how you write about it is beautiful, and I know for other people, how do you find, because the invitation in all of that which life is offering you, there's an invitation to not feel enough and to be in the craze. But how do you find your enoughness to be able to say, this this life, this moment that my life is offering me
Mm-hmm.
is enough. It may not look like
Mm-hmm.
this, and not
Mm-hmm.
even just like, I know for me, not even just, it may not look like, my friends or my partners or um, my mentors or whoever, but sometimes it may not look like what I'm actually preferring in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not just it doesn't look
And
like theirs, but it doesn't look like maybe what I prefer. How do you still find the love when that comes up?
yeah, so I remember having quite a big moment when the children were quite small. And I referred to this the other day when we were chatting. So I got a phone call from Robert, who was teaching at a very big conference, and I had all this kind of life swelling in me. Like I had all these things I wanted to say, and I was growing so much in that sort of phase of my development as a human being and a woman. And I felt very like passionate about things. And I felt like he was getting to go out there and speak to like 3,000 people. And although I really didn't want to speak to 3,000 people, there was something about the fact that he was going off and doing that and I was at home that at that stage was really uncomfortable for me and felt really odd. And at the same time, it was totally what I was choosing to do. And I felt deeply surrendered to being with my children and being at home while he was off doing what he was doing. And anyway, so I received a phone call and he was like, "Hey, Holes, how are you doing?" And all that kind of thing. And we chatted and I said, "So what are you up to?" And he said, "Well, I've just had the most amazing lunch with Caroline Mace, who, for me is, I would love to be having lunch with Caroline. It would be fascinating. And it would not be small talk, let's face it." And he said, "What are you doing?" And I looked down and I was like, "Well, actually, just before I answered the phone to you, I was cleaning up guinea pig poop. Like, that's what I'm doing." And I felt this kind of like crossroads inside me of like, well, what is the holy sacred thing here? Like, is it having lunch with Caroline Mays talking about archetypes and sacred activism or whatever? Or is it about really deeply, deeply surrendering to the mess of the everyday and kind of deepening into this moment? And something happened, and something happens for me every time I really, really listen to love. I believe that there is constant communication happening between the love that I am and essentially my personality and my expression in the world and all the ways I get distorted. There's a constant stream of information and truth that is always, always, always wanting to speak to me, wanting to communicate with me. And I get to choose, am I going to listen to that voice? And in that moment, I was like, "Hey, this is sore. This feels sore. I feel left out. I feel less than. I feel like I don't even like these guinea pigs very much." um, it's like there was nothing glamorous about what I was in. There was nothing, that I could find that it felt like the world would think it was an achievement that I was cleaning out this guinea pig cage, right? So I just decided, like, okay, I think I need to really really listen on this one. Like, I think I really need to go deeper than my comparison stuff and my less than stuff and all of the things that come up in that immediate moment. I think I need to go deeper here. There's an invitation here, is what it felt like. And I opened up like a folder in me of inquiry of like, so is there something that's better or worse to be doing ever? Is there a hierarchy? Is there a system where we get to say what's more sacred and what's less sacred? And this inquiry leads all the way back to everything that we've been taught in the world and all our conditioning. Certain people are more holy than other people, right? Being in certain bodies makes you more special or important or holy. Being in a certain position in society, being a religious leader, like all of these things, like not being able to touch a sacred text because you're not ordained in a certain order or what, we have all these structures around that create these, that's kind of quite unconscious in us. This is more holy, this is more important, this is more special, this is more beautiful. And when I asked love, it was like, love has no hierarchy. I've never really said it in these words before, but it's like that's what it felt like. There's no order of specialness or sacredness. And therefore, if I can really choose to be in this present moment, in all the messy glory of it, if I can choose love in this moment when there's stuff all over the floor and there's cheese stuck to the sofa, and one day I got to the end of my day and I had like a gingerbread man, and there's a gingerbread man head like stuck down my bra. And I remember just going, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm a mess. There's too much mess. There's too many crumbs. I don't know what's going on. And, there's something about something at some stage there was a surrender. And this isn't specific to any path. But it was how I came to this realization was through this inquiry of, what if the thing I'm doing right now is the most important thing in the world? And the reason it's the most important thing in the world is because I'm bringing myself to it with presence, and because there is nothing else. Because back to your point that you started with, Jerome, when we opened up this section of the conversation, was you were saying that essentially, we always think there's something else. We always think the next moment is going to bring the gratification we're seeking. But if we're seeking, we are going to be seeking in that moment too. It's more about how we bring ourselves to the moment. So if I'm seeking for this to be different, because I'm waiting for the next moment to come, that moment too will just be made of the same stuff, which is seeking. So I think I just had this big realization that, like, wait a minute, and I wonder if anyone else needs to hear this, and I wonder what anyone else feels about this. And then, so as part of my inquiry, I began to ask around, specifically other mothers, and was like, do you feel seen? Do you feel like what you're doing is enough? Do you feel like, and nobody was feeling like they were being honored for what they were doing. No one was feeling it was sacred work, And so I just began to say the thing that I was feeling, and it was just amazing, the response I got, because people doing everyday tasks, whatever they are, whether it's in motherhood or just, I don't know, cleaning your own toilet, or, paying your bills or going to the grocery store. It's like, when we start having the conversation that these moments too are holy, these moments too are sacred, because we bring ourselves to them with our fullness, and we face into them. And yes, when we come into the present moment, there may also be boredom, and there may also be resentment, and there may also be comparing ourselves. But can we be present enough to also be a welcome for all of that too? Because that's necessary. I think sometimes people think of presence as like you enter some idyllic garden and everything's fine, but it's not true. We know that. It's like you come into the present moment and it's like, oh, there's all these emotions and experiences here for me to welcome and be a welcome to. And so it takes some courage as well, but the more I began to speak about it, the more I began to realize that people wanted to be in this conversation, and that I need to be in this conversation to keep me coming back to the present moment, to the love in the present moment. Because this is not the way I see it, like, we're not on a linear journey. This is a constant coming back, coming off, coming home, coming off, coming home, coming off. And so I just began to really experiment with living from that place and doing it as best as I could, and really being onto myself when I wasn't, because that's the other bit, right? Like staying awake.
Yeah.
Awake to myself. Where am I? Keep asking that question. Yeah.
I'm almost like at tears, because you're reminding me of, so everything there's so much that you spoke about, basically being present for that, this life, this second, it matters. One, because it's all I have, but two, because love gave it to me. Like when I realized that Love gave me this moment, right?
Mm.
And I am a piece of love. So whatever I have in this moment is
Mm.
enough.
Mm.
And that was one of the big things, big awakenings for me was, and you just spoken to it so beautifully. I was like saying, I'm really almost at tears because there were moments in my healing journey before I really got this, what you're talking about, where, I was coming off of dialysis. I was, coming off of dialysis treatment. I was
Mm.
ridiculously tired. I had,
Mm.
but at the same time, I had this longing to express and share, some wisdom that I had with the world.
Mm.
But, my body wouldn't allow me to do it at a level that I was
Mhm.
wanting it to be at.
Mm.
And also having the thought coming in that, my life would be so much better if I was completely healthy already.
Mm.
And I woke up to this, like, it was this thing of like, what if this never changes for me?
Mm.
What happens if I never get well,
Mm.
if dialysis is supposed to be the rest of my life?
Mm.
Will I have spent my entire life missing out
Mm.
on the love that's right here?
Mm.
And it may not look like that. It may not look like this
Mm.
over here, but maybe my experience of love is what I'm supposed to find in resting more than the average person.
Mm.
Maybe mine is supposed to be, instead of, being speaking to the 5,000 people on the stage, maybe my body will only allow me to do the five. But what if I found the most juicy, delicious experience in this
Mm.
five? And what if I'm just supposed to rest more and supposed to slow all the way down? What if that's supposed to be my life? Right.
Mm. Mm.
And that was that experience of, I mean, you just spoke about when I really embraced that and was like, this moment is mine. First of all, it's
Mm.
mine. And I want to be a good steward of it.
Mm.
Love gave it to me, and it
Mm.
gave it to me so that I can love it.
Mhm.
And that shifted everything for me. And I think one of the big things that you talked about that reminded me was like, this is what unconditional love is about.
Mm.
Is can I love what's here no matter what?
Mhm.
And can I love myself no matter what? And I
Mm.
think actually I wanna this is a perfect segue into something I wanted to bring up for you, because
Mm.
I was like, I came across this last night. It's so apropos. Love is always giving us in the moment what we need.
Mm. Mm.
And I said, oh, it's so apropos. I'm talking to her today, and I would just be remiss if I don't bring this up in our conversation. So, speaking of unconditionally loving myself, there is a poem that you wrote that has gone viral,
That's
and
true. I'm crazy.
it's gone really viral. I see it all the time,
Oh,
everywhere, even if it's not, attributed to you. So I think in a
yeah,
very way,
yeah,
I
that
want to
happened.
make sure this is attributed to you because you wrote this. But it has gone everywhere. And
Oh.
as a poet myself, I know when we write poetry, it
Mm.
really is, it's different. It's literally, at least let me speak for me. When I write poetry, it's literally a piece of myself.
Mm.
There's a piece of myself in this.
Mm.
And even more than my writing, and my writing is usually me
Mm.
anyway, but poetry is
Mm.
literally like me.
It's so intimate.
It,
Yeah.
it is a sacred thing. And
Oh.
so I wanted to read this as we're talking, and I want to just have a brief conversation about it, because I think it really speaks
Mm.
to,
Mm.
can I love myself unconditionally in this moment, which is where we
Mm.
just were. So I'm going to read it.
Mm.
Today, I asked my body what she needed, which is a big deal considering my journey of not really asking that much. I thought she might need more water, or protein, or greens, or yoga, or supplements, or movement. But as I stood in the shower reflecting on her stretch marks, her roundness where I would like flatness, her softness where I would like firmness, all those conditioned wishes that form a bundle of never quite rightness, she whispered very gently, Could you just love me like this? Mm.
Mm.
Just I've seen it 1,000 times now.
Yeah, I know, it's
And
crazy.
every time it's like, phew. I
Mm.
know, and also because I know that journey. I know
Mm.
this one really well.
Mm.
But I want you to speak to, I want to just hand this over to you because this was such a beautiful writing
Mm.
that has obviously touched the hearts of thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the world.
Mm.
Where did this come from?
Yeah, so when I wrote this poem, I was in the shower and I was genuinely in that reflection, right? And what happens for me sometimes is I just stay in the reflection and I'm like, man, this body of mine and but I had this full body experience of like this loving voice that I'm talking about, but it's so hard to talk about because it's like my air and water, and I find it really hard to kind of articulate it. But it was like this surge of love that loves me so beyond my wildest imaginings came through me, and this poem, but just was like it was given, it was just given.
Mm.
And I had to like run out of the shower to find a pen and paper. And this is the whole household, we're writers, so it's like this is just normal standard, like I need a pen, I need a paper. So I just scribbled it down, and it felt like the most healing gift I could have received. It was like
Mm.
purely for me. And I think that's what I've really learned about, you know writing through the experience of it going all over the world. I mean, I get messages every day. It's like a constant stream of people writing to thank me for this poem. It's so interesting because the place that this came from is the deepest field that exists in all of us, is all I can describe
Mm.
it as. It is the love that has no hierarchy, and it is the presence um, that adores me so deeply and adores you so deeply beyond any thing we throw at it, beyond any beliefs we set up in its way. And it's a love that it discriminates against nobody. It is a love that is freely given to each and every one of us, should we choose to listen. And for me, I think the reason poetry is so tender, Jerome, like I love how you said that, because it's like it's such a different experience writing a poem than writing like an essay or a piece or whatever. It's even more intimate than speaking. It's the ultimate somehow. So it was a really interesting choice to share that poem too, because it was so personal to me. It was so for me. And I think I showed it to a friend of mine, and she was like, you have to let people see that. You can't keep that one to yourself. That's one of those ones. And I played with it for a while, and I was like, actually, yeah, that's true. And what's been really moving to me is how I was writing that from my perspective, like a post-birth body, essentially, um, which is a lifelong body. It's not just a period of time. It's like your body has changed and it no longer belongs to you, and that is it. And that's what I was writing from. But many of the messages I get come from people who have all kinds of things. There was a woman who wrote to me recently from a cancer survivors group, and women had had all sorts of mastectomies, and two of my close friends have had that recently. I understand as best I can from my perspective what it's like to actually have that big a change to your body. And she said, we've all just been crying with relief that these words came, and I had to find you and write to you and thank you. But I think that that what people are really, really thirsty for, and really like, that's why they're really attracted to this poem, is because this came from that purity of love. It came from the the from the eyes of love. Like, it came from how we're really truly seen, and that is what I'm most interested in, is connecting with that presence that exists in all of us, and that sometimes we get to tap into. As we just get to tap into it for our own process, and the more personal and specific that is, somehow the more universal that is. Everyone can relate so deeply when we share something that is also purely, you know, back to our conversation point, like purely from the present moment. If I
Yeah.
really deepen into this present moment, and it's so funny because, you know, I get so many people who say, like, well, what is God? Like, of course, it's this big question, right? And it's like, well, for me, God is just a fancy word for love, a word that's got a lot of baggage that puts a lot of people off. And I was walking along a field one day and going to pick the children up, and I was just asking, well, what is God for me? Like, what is this whole thing that everyone talks about? And, you know, and I suddenly got that the simplest way of putting it for me is that, like, God is the seeing. God is not some object or something. God is the experience of seeing with love. That is all it is. The actual act of seeing, but it's the eye of the heart, right? You know, Mary Magdalene talked about this. It's like the vision that comes from seeing with your heart is an entirely different way of seeing in the world. It sees way beyond the body, it sees way beyond our limitations, it sees way beyond all of the things that the world tells us make us, put us in some kind of hierarchy. And it comes from that place. You know, it comes from seeing, actually seeing with the heart,
Mm.
you know, but properly, you know, and realizing, you know, that we are included in that, and we are that, is the next stage. I mean, that's the big that's the big drop in, is that, wait, this isn't just how I'm seen, this is who I am at the deepest level, you know. And and I keep one foot there, and I keep one foot in my very human embodied experience, and I somehow dance around where those things meet, you know, where my humanity and my divinity meet. That's where that poem comes from, you know, my
Mm.
human humanness and my divine divineness, and they can live together in a poem like that, you know, because it's coming from my exact experience in that exact moment, and my doubts and my self-hatred and the yuck that I experience when I sometimes, you know, look at myself and all those things, but also listening to love at the same time, and wanting to know who I am, and wanting to remember where I am and who I am. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think that's where that poem comes from, which is why it speaks so deeply to so many people, I think, because it's coming from the depth of the mystery. And some people kind of then follow me, and I think they get a bit confused, because they're like, wait, she's talking about all this really deep spiritual stuff. I just came here because of body positivity. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm offering. And also, that's, by the way, you can go to other spaces, and that's totally cool. But it's also important for me to say in spaces like this that that's what we're really thirsty for, is that level of love. Even if we think it's too spiritual and it's too deep and it's too blah blah blah, it's like, no, that's what we're thirsty for.
And the body is, you know, what I've, because again, it speaks to my, you've spoken so beautifully to so much right here. But one of the things that that you're just speaking to, which is
Mm,
what the people are finding and coming to, even if they don't understand, is
mm,
that what I learned in my journey, which is what my illnesses they came
mm,
to invite me to, is the body is really one of our first journeys back home to that love.
mm,
It is one of the biggest doorways back.
mm,
And if you can take that, and I think body positivity, the movement of it, which, you
mm,
know, I celebrate, I'm a part of in many ways. But
mm,
I think what it really is trying to get you back to is not just, hey, I accept this body, I like it, look at my body, but
yeah,
it's,
yeah,
this body is a vessel for the love that I am.
mhm,
And because it is, it's not only enough, but it's holy, just as
mhm,
it is in
mhm,
any moment that it is, whether it's experiencing an illness right now, or it's
mhm,
experiencing, you know,
mhm,
post motherhood, you know, post birth motherhood, or it's
mhm,
experiencing whatever, or I got the six pack I wanted, or whatever it is.
mhm,
This body right here
mhm,
is the expression
mhm,
of the love that is. And um I love your definition of God, because that is exactly the definition that I came, being raised as traditional Christian, all of that. But what I came to understand is it's love. It is the experience, the expression of it. And it's the love. This is something that actually, when you were speaking, I was like, it came to me to share with you, because this was something I got one time when I was kind of channeling about it. And it basically said to me, God is the love that wants to wear our face and use our name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the invitation every day that I wake up is, will I let myself be used? Will I let my name and my face be used today by the love that I am? And that, yeah. So, and I think that is an awesome place to to close it. I know I'll have you on again because we're friends. So we will have more
We could go for like
conversations.
4 hours. We could go for 4 hours right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But just to complete from my end on what you just said, is that like, it doesn't surprise me that you and I say the same prayer every day. And we've never said that to each other before. But my daily prayer is like, and this is the key to this whole topic, is like, my daily prayer is, I genuinely hand over my hands, my feet, my eyes, my mouth, the whole lot, like, have it, it's yours. Let me be used to express love here. And I then have to surrender to the mystery of how that's going to look, and who I'm going to need to say the thing to, or not say the thing to, or remain silent, or make a move, or touch something, or like throughout the day, I come back to what am I using what purpose am I giving my body right now?
Yeah.
And the prayer is just to keep giving it to love, keep having it be in service of the loving presence. And then I don't get to be in control of how that looks. Yeah. Doesn't surprise me, Jerome.
So I have some rapid fire questions
Oh,
I want
cool.
to get to before, because I want to dive more, but I'm going to stop. we will do this again.
Yeah, let's do part two.
Yeah,
for
we
sure.
will do a part 2.
Yeah.
So these are rapid fire questions, just whatever comes up for you, just spit that out. So since this is about, Well-Being Wednesday, what is your definition of well-being?
My definition of well-being is, well, a massive part of it is that I have to say is being in honest, truthful, love-based community. Because we can't do anything that we've just been talking about on our own. We just can't. And so I can't talk about my definition of well-being without talking about that, by talking about what happens when you and I join our awarenesses and ask each other questions and deepen into our inquiries together. Like, I just think none of this stuff is possible on our own. So that in this moment, that's my answer. It's like proper love-based community learning and deepening.
Okay, I'm just going to ask the next question. I won't comment on that. So we won't go into a whole nother
3 hours.
Yeah.
Write that one down for another topic.
Right. I will definitely do that. What's one activity you can always count on that makes you feel that well-being?
Singing. Yeah, I sing. And I'm learning the guitar right now so that I can sing. And then what's interesting is it's turning into the thing I just spoke about before, which is that now, like, Bo loves harmonizing with what I'm singing, my daughter. And so we sing together, and I sing on my own, and just something that pulls, like, that I think knits together, like, my physicality and my divinity, and singing seems to just do that. Yeah.
You are such my twin in so many ways. Again, I'm going to continue. This will be part 2, but just know that is my exact
That was part 3 right there.
Yeah, that was part 3. So that's part 3. So next question. What advice, if you tuned into the higher next version, I guess, of you, the future self, the
Mm-hmm.
one that is even more well and more
Mm-hmm.
embodied of the love that she is,
Mm-hmm.
what advice would she give you today?
Wow, this is a line that I've received a few times, and it moves me very deeply when this line gets given to me again, because it has such deep meaning for me, and it may sound really, really simple, but it's that the journey towards that is to come to love for everything,
Mm,
but like everything, like the smallest detail, like asking for guidance on the smallest detail, however trivial, however non-sacred it seems, however messy, however painful, like come to this loving voice for guidance on everything. Yeah,
mm.
yeah, yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Part five.
Part five. What's a guilty pleasure of yours that's totally worth it?
A guilty pleasure of mine that's totally worth it. Oh, that's a great one. Um, a guilty pleasure of mine that's totally worth it. Do you know, it's I would have to say that we've got Netflix on our TV, and every now and again I'm just like, especially when Robert's away, and so I'm kind of in my own little rhythm for a little while, and I suddenly become like, I don't know, I just like I'm on my own in the evenings. I'm going, oh, I will just decide to watch like a really amazing piece of art, basically like a series, like a short series that I just, oh, it's the best feeling, and I just completely zone out, and I just completely give myself to it, and I love it, and it's completely worth it, and I don't feel guilty about it at all.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed. All right, last one.
yeah.
What's one thing you wish more people would talk about honestly in the open?
Oh, part six, Jerome. How can we go from part six at the end of our interview? It's like my whole life's work right there. Okay, but if I have to answer it in a short way, which is virtually impossible, I just have to breathe into being able to make this short. It would always be the ways in which we are really truthfully struggling with stuff.
Mm,
Because I've never had a conversation with anyone where I've shared a little bit of that and there hasn't been, it ended in like deep crying and laughing and healing. And, you know, it happened just this morning. I just had a conversation with someone where I just said, how are you actually doing? Because I'm not sure and I haven't seen you for a while. And it's like the minute she opened up to what was really going on, she had a massive cry and then she walked off like 10 tons lighter. And
mm,
that's what matters to me. Like, can we do that? Because the love that we're talking about can handle anything and resolve anything. You know, it's like it's possible. It's, we don't need to be ashamed of that stuff because it can't exist in the light. You know, it can't exist in the, oh no, I'm doing the thing. I can't, I've got to stop myself. But you know, like, you know what I'm saying, right? It's like that's what I wish for everyone, is that we would just open up a little bit more, even when someone says, like, how are you? And you, it might just be as simple as saying, do you know, my short answer is I'm good, and I could tell you a lot of stuff, because life is full on and it's complex, and being a human being is not a straightforward thing. And you know, maybe let's chat more about that sometime, because and invariably that's like such a relief for the other person, because it's like, oh my god, are you serious, really? And especially because people project onto me, it's always doubly powerful, because they assume things, because you know, I've got an Instagram account and I teach
mhm,
and I do all the things, and it's like really, so I love just saying to people like, well, actually I've been feeling absolutely terrible about myself for the last couple of days, and I'm going to need to go and seriously work on myself to come back to the loving center that I know. And they're like, cool, thanks for telling me. You know what I mean? Like, in that way of, that opens up so much.
I
So
wanna. This is we can seriously. This is, but I'm gonna close with this because one, you've inspired me to ask another question at the end, which
mhm.
is, um, I well, I have to ask you since you inspired it. So, but I'm gonna ask for you to answer it quickly. But it's basically like, what's one thing that's at the raw edge right now
For
for you?
me,
Yeah.
one thing that's at the raw edge for me right now is really taking care of my body. It's
Hmm.
not easy for me. It's not easy for me, and it's not easy for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That is my very short answer, because that is part 6 and 7.
We'll leave it at that. And I want to close just by saying
Yeah.
thank you for that, because something else I learned from both you and Robert, I've heard
Mm,
it from both of you,
mm,
and it's become a salient practice of mine, is
mm,
honesty before positivity.
mm,
And what I learned in that is when I am, and it's so, and we are so twins, because I do this very thing. When people ask me, I'm honest.
mm,
I will tell, I don't just say I'm okay or I'm good, or
mm,
I tell you
mhm,
exactly what it is. And sometimes it's things are wonderful right now. And sometimes, you know what?
mm,
I am hurting or I'm scared about something right now and I need to, and I'm working on that.
mm,
But that centers me. Having that practice of just
mm,
owning where I am
mm.
has centered me in love more than anything I can
Yes.
express.
Yes. Like, it's the only way for love to reach us. Honesty is the pathway. And we have got to stop talking, but it's so impossible, because this is the thing, like, the pathway is honesty. Because otherwise it gets all blocked up with shame and secrecy and comparison and thinking that everyone else has got their stuff together. And actually the truth is that when we get completely honest about where we genuinely are in this moment, then the love gets to go like, whew, like that. Yeah,
So
that's
okay, so
perfect.
so listen, this is part two. You just gave it to me. The
Yeah,
pathway is honesty. So
yeah,
the next time we talk, that's the conversation. The pathway is
yes,
honesty.
yes.
Thank you so much, my friend. You have just blessed me in this conversation beyond, and I know that the viewers are just going to be the same. But as always, I am recentered and returned to love in a bigger way by talking to you.
Yeah,
Thank you
well,
so
I feel the
much.
same, and I'm so grateful to you for this conversation. So grateful. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me into this. It's like, yes.
Yeah. Until next time,
Yeah.
much love, everybody.
Bye bye.